The Renew podcast features inspiring conversations between host Lauren Martin and influential women shaping the real estate industry. Renew is a rent-free initiative to unite and cheer on women professionals from every corner of the real estate world, coast to coast.
Welcome to the Renew podcast presented by Rent Spree, where we aim to elevate female voices, share insights on how to navigate industry challenges, and showcase the remarkable achievements of women in real estate. I'm your host, Lauren Martin, and today we have a very special guest joining us. She's somebody that I just met recently and I have grown to love already. Please welcome Liv Esfandiari, the VP of Customer Experience and Operations at SkySlope. Liv, welcome.
Hi, and listen to that flawless execution of the Persian last name. That doesn't happen often. So this is just one of this woman's many talents.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You never know. I've butchered many last names, so I'm very happy to get it right. So I'm
I butchered my own last name for the first few years I had to get used to saying it. So
really, that's awesome.
yeah.
Well, that makes me feel better. We're excited to have you on. And to get us started, you have such an interesting journey. And just getting to know you as we set this up, I was already inspired by you. So if you don't mind sharing with our listeners just
Mhm.
who you are and how you got started and what you do for SkySlope today.
Yeah, I'd love to. So my name's Liv. I've worked at SkySlope for just over 8 years now. I started at SkySlope as a customer success manager, and interestingly enough, when I first found out about SkySlope, I was just starting to get my feet into technology. And I interviewed with Tyler Smith, our CEO. And at the time, the company was still growing. So this was over a decade ago. And they weren't quite ready to take the plunge for an official CSM yet. So Tyler told me, after our interview, hey, loved you, but we're not quite ready yet. So, check in some amount of time, we will have a position for you. And I think a lot of people would have been kind of discouraged at that point, but I looked at it as perfect. I'm going to sharpen my skills even more before I get there. And I made it a point to check in every 6 months. And within, I would say, about a year and a half, little less than 2 years, I did my regular check in, got an email, and it said, come in tomorrow. Came in, did the interview, and had the job the same day, and never looked back from there. So I've had an interesting journey with SkySlope for sure.
That's awesome. I love that. Perseverance is key. I saw this thing on Instagram the other day. I know you and I both have a love for Instagram memes, but it was this guy who takes donuts into the office with his like resume attached to the top.
I love that.
Me too. I'm like,
I
wow,
love that.
perseverance is key.
Yeah, and that's really what makes you stick out. I when I started with SkySlope, I definitely was kind of this new and jarring energy, I would say. There was especially in early startups, there's more of kind of a pack mentality because you're all just trying to survive, you're working really late nights, etc. And I kind of came in with this more colorful corporate background. And so I definitely shook the place up a little bit, but I think that overall, it was absolutely the perfect time in my life to start. And I remember thinking when it first didn't work out, I was like, oh, gosh, I just want to work at this company so bad. I'm so interested in what they do. But it did work out. And I worked my way up from a CSM to our head of our technical support team. After that, I took over my customer success team that I originally was a part of. And then from there, I kept working up and took over all of operations, which is uh, comprised of multiple departments. And then just last year, I became vice president. So I'm the youngest executive in SkySlope history, and I am the only female executive at SkySlope as well.
You go, girl. That's awesome. That's really,
Yeah.
and it honestly, you know what? It probably just goes to show for your colorful personality, stuff like that makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's definitely been something that I'm so honored to do. And I think about all my past work experience, and I'm so grateful for a couple of the great leaders I had and the good and the bad experiences. But ultimately, I really, when I think about my career, all my biggest lessons, all my biggest growth opportunities have really been with SkySlope. And SkySlope is not just my career, it is like my livelihood. I work with all my best friends. I spend a lot of my free time in Sky Slope centered conversations. So it's definitely something that is just way more than a job to me.
For sure, it becomes like a little family, especially when you've
Yes.
been there for that long.
Hmm.
Um, and I think too in tech, when you find something that you really believe in and you believe in the product and you believe in the people, it's just so easy to stick around. I don't know about you, but in my career in tech, there's been places where I've sold products I don't really believe in, or I've worked for
Hmm.
people I don't really believe in, and that's hard.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's been really interesting to watch the evolution of SkySlope. In all the respective times, we've always been the best. Uh, and I stand behind that. I'm not saying that because I work at SkySlope. When I talk to people in the industry, they're like, "Oh yeah, what else would I use?" Right? And if you actually walk through our product, it's so easy. And really, what sets us apart is just our customer support, and just how engaged and how much they care. But it's interesting because in all the eras of the product, I have seen more and more passion build between me and a lot of the OGs, as I call them. So the folks of us that have been there for a very long time, and we just care more and more. We debate more and more because we all have very, very strong attachments and passions to our success, and we genuinely care about what we do, and we care about the people that use it. We have almost like a code of ethics that we go by, where it's like we have to make sure we take care of these brokers and agents at all costs, and everybody in between.
For sure. For sure. Well, I see a special guest behind us. Do you want to introduce your special guest?
My cats are constantly walking around my house. I have to tell you, once I was on a call with legal, and we have a great legal team with our parent company, Fidelity. Just fantastic. But we were just, doing health check, etc. And this was the first time as an executive I had been on a legal call,
So there was a lot at stake here.
and I was just trying to look so serious, which in general I'm not the best at. So I'm like, you know, and one of my cats jumps,
Oh my God.
sails past me, all 19 pounds of him. It really, well, 19 pounds is generous. I'm pretty sure he's at 20 at this point.
Yeah.
Sails past the camera, and everybody just goes silent. And I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. And thankfully they all started laughing after that. But yes, my two cats, Carter is the love of my life. Carter I got when I had absolutely nothing. When I tell you nothing, I was like living on ramen, and a very, very small, renting a very small room, commuting for I think an hour and some change every single day for my first, big kid job. Around that time is when I had gotten him. And then Clark is his younger brother we adopted in 2020. And he is just absolute mayhem. So he's my baby, but Clark's a little wild. So he every time someone comes over, he steals the show. He wants to sit in your lap, he wants to stare deeply in your eyes. And Carter and I are like, we're good. We don't we're we're not fooled by his charm.
Right.
So yeah, yeah, they are my absolute favorite creatures. I love spending time with them. It's one of my favorite things to do is when I'm just done with work is to cuddle with them, read a book, and just enjoy myself.
Yeah. Well, who's this one?
So the one I don't
Oh, I
know, I
only see
can't
one.
I can't. Oh, that's Clark.
Okay. Hey,
Yeah,
Clark.
that's yeah, and he always has to be near Mama. Like
Yeah.
he's constantly inspecting the situation, and they're now in heaven. Brother Corbin, who's on my arm here, was the same way. So we swear in my family that like Clark is a Corbin reincarnate. After I lost him, I had gotten Clark,
Mhm.
and he just stares at me. I'll be doing something, I'm cooking, and I'll just look over and he's locked in on me. I'm like, okay, buddy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think that was a hard thing, switching from being in the office to working from
Hmm.
home for sure is the animals. I have a dog and she is, I think I'm her emotional support human. They say emotional support pet. I think it goes the other
Hmm.
way for us. She's constantly
Hmm.
on my lap. She's tried to shut my laptop before she comes up and is like, no, not today.
She's like, you ain't selling anything today, girlfriend.
Right, exactly. I'm like, well, somebody has to pay for that very fancy food that you're eating. So, um,
I love it. They just to be them for a day. Like they have no concerns. They have no stress. They are just enjoying themselves, and we're here working our tails off for them. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
me neither. Me neither. Well, with your tech background, I'm curious, did you wake up and decide that you were getting into tech? Did you plan it when you were a little kid? You're like, you know what, I'm going to be in a technical field, or did it just happen by happenstance?
So I'll try not to go too ranty here, but I think the way to answer that actually goes back to my freshman year of
Okay.
high school. So I have a very different way of absorbing and sharing knowledge. So, just for example, just one, I don't have a ton of talents, but one of my biggest talents is I can process things very quickly and do things extremely fast. And it's just a known joke for anybody who works for me. It's like, okay, give Liv 2 minutes and she'll have it done. So, just for instance, in the last 3 years, I've read well over 350 books.
Wow.
So I just, it's just how I work, and it is my party trick. I don't know how exciting that is. Um, but I was in high school. I remember my first semester, and I just was not doing well in school. I was really struggling, and I remember constantly during classes just thinking to myself, if you would just give me what I need to learn, I can teach myself. And I ended up having a teacher, and I'll never forget him. He was, I believe, mathematics, and after class one day, he walked up to me and he slapped a McDonald's application on my desk, and he said, "You're going to need this because this is going to be the only thing you do in your life." And that day, I remember I left the school and I said, I'm never going back there. Told my mom I want to go on an independent home study and I want to graduate early. My mom's like, what? Why? And so within a few months of that, just like she really wasn't convinced, things just kept going downhill at school. And finally, I ended up going on independent home study. So after that, I became a straight A student and graduated almost 2 years early from high school. And
Wow.
really, it was that burning fire towards that teacher where I just basically told myself, no matter what I do, I'm going to be successful and I'm not going to give up.
Right.
So I tried the traditional route with, I started with community college and I really did enjoy it, especially because I'm super into psychology and theology. But unfortunately, it really was just, I knew that I wasn't going to reach my goals in the broke college kid mindset. And, I don't come from money. So my parents couldn't pay for college. I didn't want to go into debt. So I figured out within my first, year or two at community college, I was like, I got to do something different. So I started researching and I started to see a lot of trends talking about tech and tech emergence. So I went for the closest thing that I could find that was tech. And so I found my first corporate job, and the tech wasn't the strongest, but it was a start in the right direction, and it was a corporate job. And I did the grunt work there, and I learned more about the system as I did that. So I was an assistant. And after time, I got into implementation and account management.
Mhm.
And from there, I realized that I could start to transfer that to real tech companies that were, had that kind of sexy mindset where it's like our technology is our brand and it's what we live and breathe and die for.
Mhm.
So I kind of worked my way through it, and I just knew it was non-negotiable for me not to make great money and become a leader at some point. And so I figured that tech was the best way to hack that because I didn't have a degree. And I certainly don't want to, some of the smartest and most successful people I know have degrees.
Mhm.
So I certainly don't want to say you can be very successful with a degree.
For
But what
sure.
I found was, a lot of the people that I knew had these degrees, were in debt, and were going nowhere. So I just got really aggressive, and it was like I kept finding these companies that were in tech, and I was just putting in my time with them. And, eventually I got to the point where I hit SaaS, and that's, kind of what led me to SkySlope. So when I was a little girl, did I dream of being, I joke, I'm a tech bro. I always say it like I'm the quintessential tech bro. Um, but did I dream of that? No, but I dreamt of being a leader. I dreamt of being incredibly smart, which I would pray and hope most days I am. And I dreamt of having a really, really cool job. And I think I checked all those marks. So, tech for me is non-negotiable. I can't imagine not being in tech at any point in my career, no matter where I go, 10, 15, et cetera, years from now.
For sure. And I think that, especially when we were kids, technology was, a little different. So
Hmm.
of what we do today, I mean, it just wasn't even there. Like if you would have told me when I was a kid, I was popping in my little hit clips, listening to Britney Spears, I did it again with my Furby, that we would be talking to our phones with something called AI, and they would just like
Hmm.
write everything we needed to know and turn our pictures into comic book characters. I would be like, okay, weird. You've watched Back to
Hmm.
the Future too many times.
Hmm.
So I think that, it's really cool to watch you write your own story, and
Hmm.
you're just a survivor, you've done what it takes to get where you are. And I think that a lot of women do that and kind of mold their own life, which is really
Hmm.
important. But it leads into my next question. So I am a woman. I started out in the fashion industry. Goes back to your thing of degrees. Like most kids don't know what they want to do with their lives. I wasted
Hmm.
4 years studying art history, and now I work with like a rental solution. Like what was that? Um, but as a woman who has worked in software and
Hmm.
worked with a bunch of tech bros, I know that it does not come without struggles.
Hmm.
So, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the obstacles that you had to overcome to get where you are today, just as a female?
Yeah, and I want to say, why am I not surprised that you worked in fashion? Because you always look so put together and like just so. I don't know how to. You always look like you have your life together, even if in the background maybe on some days you don't. So I just
Yeah.
want to tell you that time was not wasted. I can't speak to the arts background, but at least the fashion for sure paid off.
Thank you. Well, ditto to you. But I also do have sweatpants on underneath this dress.
I love it. Hey, I put on this dress and I was like, I'm not big on dresses, but there's a few. It's like made out of like jean material. So I'm like, oh, this is stretchy. I love it. I'll wear it.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but yeah, I think that's a great question, and I appreciate you asking it because that's not discourse that I have in my day-to-day career. I have to really be intentional for the women that I lead and all across all of my departments to talk about these things. So I just recently kicked off these women's seminars, and we're talking about commanding a room. And commanding a room isn't just like, hey, I'm in an escalation, or hey, I need to make a point. It's a whole mindset. It's psychological, right? So this isn't something there's a lot of conversation around. I would say one of the biggest things that I will call out is there's a thin line between servitude and silence. And for me, servitude is something that I thrive in. I was just raised that way. I genuinely enjoy showing servitude to the people that I care about. But what I've found is, as a woman in tech specifically, you kind of get relegated to the servitude role a lot. And then
Yeah.
that can turn into silence. And you have to be really adamant about those types of things to ensure that that's not the case. So, that's been a big challenge for me is finding that level of respecting myself and being true to myself. So not participating in self-betrayal just to have the title or have the pay or, whatever it may be. What I've found is I thankfully work with really great men who, have incredible women that they partner with in business. They have incredible wives, all partners, all my executive team, daughters, etc. Um, but ultimately, I am the minority on my team, and what I find a lot is, and I don't think they realize sometimes it's more of okay, great, well, break, we're gonna go do this, and then it's like the follow up. I'm the one that does the follow up, or I'm the one that books something, or I'm the one that does whatever. And for me, I don't have a pride around that. So it's not an issue. When it becomes an issue is if it gets in the way of my voice. So if
Yeah.
I'm just there to do that servitude and there's silence there, that's a problem. And I think you have to be really cognizant about that. Now, I am a big fan of using self-awareness in these situations and choosing your battles very wisely. So for me, I'm not going to go, hey, no one offered to take notes for this meeting. I'm here as a participant in the meeting. I'm not going to do that because
Mhm.
to me that's unproductive. I'm going to leverage that and go, oh, cool, no one else took the notes. I took the notes. I've now got the most intel on this situation. I've got the follow up. I've got the opportunity to do the execution. However, if it were to become a situation where I'm taking the notes and nobody's taking in what I'm saying, that's where you have to stand up and go, hey, okay, we gotta circle back here.
Yeah.
Let's talk. So I found that what I internally deal with is I'm not someone who really cares a lot what people think of me. And what I mean by that is I do what I want. I am covered head to toe in tattoos. I'm about my body's about 70% tattooed. And that's not typical for an executive. For a lot of women, men tend to be more tattooed, all the good stuff, right? Add a couple layers in there with like my personal beliefs, my ethnical backgrounds, all that stuff. So the biggest thing that I will say though is sometimes it's hard not to walk in a room and be like, oh, I'm not one of the boys. I'm
Mhm.
never going to be as successful as these guys. I'm never going to be as heard or respected as these guys. And there's always going to be a film that's placed upon me where um, it's related to emotions or motherly instincts or
Mhm.
whatever it may be. So I would say those kind of things tend to jar me every so often where I'm kind of sitting with all of them. I also think for women, there's so much more labor that we have to do. And you and I were talking about this even before we started the podcast, where even socially, it's proven that we, a lot of the times, put in emotional labor into conversations just with our body language alone. And people tend to physically touch us more for like anchoring and reassurance. So
Mhm.
we're constantly giving that energy. If I'm in a group and I'm having a conversation at a conference and I'm not smiling, it's like, God, they're VP. Like, did you check her? She's ugh. You
Yeah.
know, if
Me.
one of my male peers is doing that, it's like, oh, great to meet you, man.
Mhm.
So we have to do so much more, labor.
Yeah.
So I will say that, there's a general fatigue that comes with that as well that you really have to be aware of. And I find that sometimes my male colleagues are kind of seem more replenished than me. And I'm like, well, that's probably because a lot of my job is giving therapy sessions or reaffirming or doing a lot of these things or just smiling and even putting in the sheer hours every week. Like everybody's got a personal preference. I don't go into the office without makeup. I always make sure my hair is done. I take care. I try to take as best care of myself as possible, and that alone is a lot of work. You
Yeah.
add hours to your week every week just doing that. um so I would say that too is like, one of those things where it does feel like a separation.
Mhm.
Because sometimes I'm like, there's just a disconnect here. So
Yeah.
I don't, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that wasn't too ranty, but
No, no, I think that makes total sense. If you add on all of the things, the heels, I don't know if you wear heels, I
hmm
wear heels, your feet hurt. Everybody's
oh,
feet hurt, but if you add 6 inches, 4, 3, 2, 1, doesn't matter, your feet hurt.
hmm
The makeup, the hair, the
hmm
smiling, like, gosh,
hmm
we were just talking, like you said, I get back to the room and I'm like, ugh, let me rest my face for a second.
hmm
It really is. I can't tell you how many times if I'm not smiling, somebody says like, "Oh, is something wrong?" And I'm like, "No, it's just my baseline." If I'm not
hmm
above the baseline, they think it's below the baseline. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Oh, for sure. Or if you don't wear makeup, are you
yeah.
sick? Or, I've had jokes, uh, are you hungover?
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry that you're not used to what a woman's face looks like without makeup, but no, I'm neither. Like, and I would like to say I look pretty without makeup. I can
Yeah.
confidently say that I don't look like a different person without makeup. So it's just one of those things they don't even realize that they're so attuned to seeing us a certain way in the way that
Right.
we're presented. That if you don't show up smiling, or if you don't show up with your hair done and your lashes on or anything else, it's like whoa, and it's like, there's a level there that there's a level of privilege there that just men have, that they don't even realize that they get to just wake up and put on clothes and go to work. And we don't do that.
Yeah, I remember
So
one time I went to my office. This was at my old job, and I was wearing sneakers. I was headed to the airport, and I was wearing sneakers and like I don't know, fashionable sweat. They were, I guess they weren't sweats, they were like joggers,
mhm,
whatever. And they were like, "Whoa,
mhm.
one, you're so short. I didn't know you were so short. And two, are you like really sick or something?" I'm like, "I'm headed to the airport. Let me live my life. I'm not gonna dress up in a dress and sit on a plane for 6 hours." And I think that to your point, it's just they view it as lack of effort and
Mhm,
something wrong when it's just
mhm,
being comfortable. One other thing that you said too, and you have great men that you work with. I have
mhm,
great men that our leader Michael Lucarelli. He's awesome. He's a great man. We have a team of great guys, and so when I think women talk about this issue of being a woman, a lot of the times people view it as like all men. It's not all men, it's just
mhm,
the one or two that create that bad experience that lasts.
mhm.
But it's also just like you said, like an overlying issue, the notes thing. Oh my God.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room with like 10 guys. They're like, "Lauren, can you take the notes?" I'm a terrible writer. Why am
Yeah, you're like, you don't want me to take the notes.
You're not
You
going
don't
to
want me
read it.
to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm dyslexic. You won't know what's going on.
yeah, yeah.
So I definitely hear you. And I
Mhm.
think that can you tell me a little bit more about you said you're doing something, I'm so sorry, I forget what you called it, but like a
Oh
women's
yeah.
days.
Yeah, yeah. So, and by the way, I just totally agree with you. And I think one thing I want to add to what you said is it's our jobs to be vigilant in protecting everybody that we work with
Yeah.
from those kind of toxic people. And I don't use the word toxic lightly, because I think it's been thrown around a lot in like work
Yeah.
culture. Um, I believe that people at work should be able to have their own opinions and their own beliefs. And I am a firm believer that human beings should not be divided based off of those respective values, as long as they don't hurt each other. That's, that's a really big thing for me. But we're super lucky as we've matured as a company over the years. We've just really fine tuned our staff. So we just don't have anyone like that. And, but in our earlier days, we did, and it was a learning experience for all of us, because it's like, we had people that were poor leaders, and and they caused kind of this divide, and there were so many things that we had to fine tune. But it's our first time, all of us just trying to do this.
Yeah.
And that goes with the women's seminar that I started. So I had a skip level with one of my employees, and she's wonderful. Just got promoted, so I'm very proud of her. But she had said, it'd be really cool to do like a women's kind of get together, sync. I don't know what you want to call it, but we can talk about unique challenges that women face in the workplace. And I'm like, you know what? I'm on it. Within like an hour, I got something designed. I was like, got a name for it, blasted it out to all the women in our company. And we have about I would say for the seminar, it's about a 90, probably its next one, probably be closer to 95 participation rate. Obviously, there's a few outliers that just doesn't interest them, and that's totally okay. Um, but basically, what we're talking about is how to command a room, but we're looking at it through all angles. So, the first seminar that I did was really around the different masks or hats you can wear as a woman in uh, challenging situations, whether it's with a client, whether it's with an executive, whether it's with a partnership, those different dynamics. And I was very, very pleased to see the level of engagement and follow up that we had with it. And I really saw that the women at the company were like, please, can we do another one? Like almost everybody was like, can we do another one? I'm like, oh, okay. So we fine tuned it a little bit. And now we've got our next one coming with some of our, top high powered ICs and leaders. A couple of them are in my org. The other two are in product and engineering, and we're going to do more of a panel thing where people are just going to come in and ask, some questions. But it was a great experience for the first one, and I'm super excited. And again, what I'm talking about is just like hacks that I've learned that have made me successful.
Yeah.
And part of that goes to what we talked about is like the notes thing. It's like sometimes you just take the notes, girl. Don't start the fire there, right? But then there's other times where you go and you come in with power and whatnot. So it's made to balance the women and affirm them and also empower them. So for me, I don't want it to be an us versus them thing. I don't want it to be a victim thing. I don't want it to be any of that. I just want it to be, hey, there's some things that are generally speaking going to happen to you. So here's the best way to get through them.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what, the notes thing, exactly. There's some things that like
Hmm.
you gotta pick and choose your battles.
For
I'm gonna
sure.
be honest, eventually they stopped asking me to take the notes because they were really bad. And I'm like, maybe that's
They're
just the
like, don't ask Lauren.
right. They're like, oh no, I can't ever read what she wrote in that meeting. But we all have our strong suits, and
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
all, and to your point, like that shouldn't, we should be divided based on our skills and not
Hmm.
gender or our background or whatever the case may be.
100%.
So I love that you're doing that for the ladies in your company. Renew would love to team up too at any time.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
What we're
Awesome.
trying to do across the whole industry. So I love to hear it. And if we have executives listening to this, I really recommend rolling this out in your own organizations and
Hmm.
maybe, hit up Liv and see if she can give you any tips on how to do it because we all need community, I think, at the
Hmm.
end of the day.
Yeah.
So, the last question I have in this segment before we move on is work is a big part of your life. I know we talked a little bit about your cats, but what do you do for fun? What's your way of unwinding?
As I previously mentioned, I am a big reader. So reading is one of the most fulfilling things that I can do. I love it. My Kindle is literally always with me. Embarrassingly enough, I have a backup Kindle as well. So I love, love, love reading. I am actually an author as well. I published three books. So they're creative collective writing. So my first book is The Valentine, my second book is The Hellhound, and my third book is The Sacrosanct. And they're all on Amazon. So if you are interested in checking them out, again, they're creative writing. So it's not like a novel. I am working on my first novel right now, and I'm going to do a pen name just to kind of, differentiate and keep that kind of side of my career a little more separate. Um, so I'm super excited about that. So writing is another thing that I love. I very much enjoy cooking. It is something that is one of the only things that quiets my brain. So if I can cook for people I love, I'm always happy. That is just something that actually, brings me joy. I am a huge wine drinker, probably to a fault, because this I'm trying to look real good this summer. I've just recently gotten super into weightlifting over the last 6 months, and so I love wine. And I totally enjoy going to a winery. I actually have the day off today, and after this, I'm going to a winery with my best friend. So love that. Also love naps. That is something that I genuinely enjoy doing. I have an aura ring, and it actually shows your insights at the end of a year, like how many times you napped, and it just told me my number, and I'm definitely not going to share that, but that is something I love. I also super love design, so I really like doing different things in my house. And then just spending time with my best friends is really something that just makes me so happy. I love doing staycations with them, love having girls' nights, all that good stuff. But I would say I'm not, I'm a Sagittarius, but I'm not the most Sagittarius person you'll meet in the sense that I'm not a huge traveler. I've only left the country once to go to Mexico, Cabo. Never forget that. And, I'm trying to work on that a little bit, but I am, in my personal life, I'm a much more introverted person than I am at work. And I think it's because I give so much in my work life that when I'm home, it's just that's my safe place to shut down. So yeah, that's pretty much what life looks like for me in the day to day. And I'm a firm believer. I'm 34 years old, but I'm a firm believer that you're only as old as you feel. So for me, I forget that I'm at 34. I literally think that I'm still in my 20s. So
Yeah.
I just do whatever feels good to me, get tattooed, do cool stuff with my hair, whatever it may be, because that's what brings me happiness, and I enjoy that.
That's awesome. Well, I have to say, I just turned 33 last month, and I've perpetually thought I was a year younger each time my birthday comes
Love that.
I'm like, I'm turning 32 this year. My mom's like, no, you're turning 33. And I was like, well, no, I turned 31 last year. No, you thought you did, but it was 32.
You're like,
So,
I am Benjamin Button. Don't try to argue me on this.
right, exactly. I'm moving the opposite way. Um, well, I love that. We actually have a book of the month club here at Renew.
Mhm.
So we will definitely be highlighting your books. You'll have to send me over the link because I want everybody to check them out.
Apps, I would love to. And again, it's an acquired taste for sure. And the third one, a lot of people have trouble with the title. And sometimes I even pronounce it wrong. So, that one usually gets people, they're like, what is this about? Or, hellhound, they're like, is this about a dog?
Right.
So yeah, so yeah, I get mixed reviews, but I will say, I love writing, and I think I do have a gift for it. So I'd love to do that. That'd be so fun.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to check it out. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Renew. Again, stay tuned. We have more in store from Liv that will be coming out next week. If you haven't already, please make sure to like and subscribe to us on whatever pod platform you listen to us on.